This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
"11 a.m., May 11th, 1987. The police were called to a deserted service station near Pontiac, Michigan. They forced the office door open and discovered an empty safe. 2 people were missing. Elmer DeBoer, the service station courier who was carrying $10,000, and Missy Mundy, the assistant manager, who was just 16 years old.
Where? This way? Yeah, all right. Up to the car. All right. Right there. Hold it, Elmer.
The following day, the police found the body of 38-year-old Elmer DeBoer. He had been handcuffed and shot twice in the back of the head. The police called it a cold-blooded execution and wondered what connection this pretty teenage girl could have had with a brutal slaying. What happened to Missy Mundy is a bizarre story of love and violence in rural America. No one has heard from Missy since last May, the day of the killing. The police and her parents need to talk to her. Perhaps someone in our audience tonight has seen Missy. Perhaps Missy herself is watching. In the next hour, we'll tell you her story and 3 other unsolved mysteries, all needing one last piece of information before they can be solved. Join me. You may be able to help solve a mystery. Elmer DeBoer was killed on May 11th, 1987, and his body left in the woods outside Pontiac, Michigan. The mystery of who killed Elmer and why is a story of the fatal attraction between an innocent 15-year-old schoolgirl and a criminal who'd served time for assault and rape. According to the police, their ill-fated love affair eventually ended in robbery, kidnapping, and murder. The mystery of Melissa Mundy begins in 1985 in the small Maryland town of Hancock. Melissa was known as Missy to her friends and attended the local high school. She was an honor student and a member of the Future Homemakers of America.
Missy's academic records show that she was in probably the top 10% of her class. She enjoyed what she was doing. She got along well. And if I could have gauged it, I would have gauged it everything was satisfactory, because that's the way she seemed to be here at school.
Missy was a very shy person. She'd only go to her basketball games or choir practice or maybe a couple ball games. But we always knew where she was at. When she got done, she'd call us. We'd go pick her up and bring her back home.
In 1985, a stranger arrived in the area. His name was Jerry Strickland, and he said he was looking for a property to convert into an orphanage. He called on Missy's family, asking about the ownership of a nearby house.
Hi, how are you today?
When I first met Jerry, I thought, well, you know, he's a smooth talker. I mean, it was his actions, the way he talked. He was so demanding. I didn't care for his attitude.
Missy was intrigued by Jerry. This first glimpse was the beginning of a relationship that was to change her life forever.
She really liked him a lot. Every time he came out, he brought her a gift. And he gave her a lot of attention that she didn't get at home.
She went out with him in the evening after her mom got home, and she said that she got home late, but her mom didn't know who she was with, and she lied to her, told her she was with a friend.
Missy sneaked out of her house regularly to see Jerry. He told her he had a tragic past and said his first wife and child had died in a terrible car accident. Missy was swept off her feet by Jerry.
She had boy crushes at school, you know, like childhood sweethearts, stuff like that. But as far as going out with the boy, she never said anything to me about it. She never paid that much of an interest in them. That's what I don't understand about this and Jerry.
I got something for you.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You like it?
Yeah.
Put it on.
She had bought a ring, she said, for a souvenir. I come find out later, Jerry had gave her the ring. And I took her at her word, because Missy never did lie to me. That's why I never dreamt it was going to happen next.
Bye, Mom. The bus is here.
On the morning of April 17th, 1986, Missy left home to catch the school bus as usual.
I'll never forget that day. It was on a Thursday. She said, I'm going to school now. I'll see you this evening. I said, all right. That was it. That was the last word she spoke to me.
In fact, she got in Jerry's car and left the state.
I didn't believe it. Missy wasn't that kind of a person. Because I knowed Missy. I raised her. It was just a big change in that one day when she just left.
Even as Missy was driving away from her home and her family, she still didn't know the truth about Jerry Strickland. His first wife and child had not been killed in a car wreck. They are still alive. He had been passing bad checks around Hancock, and he had a prison record. He had been convicted of malicious assault. He had raped his sister-in-law, cut her throat, and left her for dead. This unlikely couple settled in Springfield, Michigan, just outside Detroit. Even though Missy gave birth to a son, Jamie, she never told her family where she was living.
She told me that she was very unhappy at home and that she didn't care about anybody at home but her older brother and her grandfather, and that that's why she was with Jerry. It was because he took her away from home.
Look, I'm working, all right?
I never seen him kiss, never held hands. I never seen him touch at all. I thought that was a little strange. I remember asking her about it once. And she said that he wasn't very affectionate.
To help make ends meet, Missy took a job as assistant manager at a gas station. There she met Elmer DeBoer, a courier for the oil company. He picked up the cash receipts from the local gas stations. Missy and Elmer became close friends.
How's Jer?
Oh, he's kind of distant lately.
He understood that she was going through a really rough time, you know, being married to this guy, and they didn't have anything for the baby and stuff like that. He's a very understanding man, very loving.
On the morning of May 11th, 1987, Elmer DeBoer came by, as usual, to pick up the cash from the station where Missy worked. He was near the end of his route. 1 hour later, customers found the station deserted. When the police arrived, they found Elmer's car in the parking lot. The office was locked.
We checked the interior of the station and found that there was nobody inside, but the safe had been opened. And there was an excess of $10,000 stolen.
There's just nothing but change in here, David.
Melissa knew Elmer's routine because of her position as assistant manager to that particular station. She knew when he was going to pick up and where.
The police have developed a theory of what happened that morning. They believe that Jerry planned the crime and was waiting with Melissa for Elmer. When Elmer opened the safe, Jerry made his move.
Elmer, don't move! All right. Stand. Put your arms up. Put them up, Missy. Put the cuffs on him. Move! Move! Hurry up! On yourself, too. Now! On yourself, too, Missy. Let's go. Jerry.
The police think that Jerry handcuffed Missy and Elmer together to convince Elmer that Missy was also a holdup victim and that her life was in danger.
We feel that Elmer was handcuffed to Missy on the pretext that she was going to be hurt. And Elmer went along with it. Reluctantly, but to protect Melissa.
What's gonna happen is I'm taking Missy with me, and you're just gonna wait here, all right? Just sit down here and just wait.
Then he unlocked the handcuffs to show Elmer that he wasn't really going to hurt Melissa, but he just wanted the money. And then he shot Elmer twice in the back of the head.
At first, I couldn't believe that it could have happened that way. But then I found out the rest of the story and how it had happened, and it was unbelievable. It was something that you'd never expect out of Melissa.
Well, what do you think? You want to take her home?
The morning after the murder, Jerry and Missy were seen in Pontiac buying a blue pickup truck with cash in small bills.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
While Jerry went to get insurance, Missy sat with the truck salesman and chatted for over 2 hours.
Now you got this 2.5 hours that she was alone. She could have told the salesman of Lucky Auto Sales. She could have picked the phone up and called the police herself to say, let me out of this. I'm in trouble. I need help. She's guilty. She's just as guilty as he is. She had the opportunity, and she didn't do it.
It's unbelievable. Somebody that sweet could do something like that. And it wasn't just me that thought she was sweet. Everybody did.
I just don't think, from what I saw of her, that she could have been involved in that. Again, I guess we changed, but to what I remember of this girl, I just don't think she could be part of it.
She's as guilty as Jerry Strickland is, even though she did not pull the trigger. She's as guilty of first-degree murder.
They obviously aren't the people that they made everybody believe. They're liars. They're phonies. There wasn't any reason for him to die. And they could do that to somebody like that. Who knows what they've done or what they could do now.
We're fearful that somebody may get hurt again. They're dangerous people. And anybody that comes in contact with them better understand the fact that they can be very, very dangerous.
I never noticed a change in her. I didn't notice a split in her personality. Unless I didn't want to. But Missy's gone. I don't know if I'll ever see her again or not. When she left, we found this letter. And in that letter, it stated, not to let nobody put her down. She wasn't no whore. She loved us all, took care of us. Signed, Missy.
Missy is 5 feet 6 inches tall, 135 pounds, and is now 17 years old. She's traveling with her 1-year-old baby, Jamie. Jerry Strickland is 26 years old, 5 feet 11, 250 pounds, and has a scar on his forehead.
I want them both real bad. They are dangerous people to any community that they're in. They will do this again.
Update, Moses Lake, Washington. Within minutes of our broadcast, 20 viewers in this small rural community called the police to say they recognized Jerry Strickland and Missy Mundy. 7 hours later, the police arrested the fugitive couple at a friend's house. They discovered that Jerry and Missy had themselves watched the broadcast and were waiting for the police.
All he said is, I'm the guy you're looking for. And he was just real calm and collect. No violence at all.
I figured the time was about 7 hours and 15 minutes from the time the Unsolved Mysteries aired and he was in custody. I just felt super about it.
On February 12th, Jerry and Missy were extradited back to Michigan to stand trial for armed robbery, kidnapping, and murder. Jerry insists they are innocent.
They got circumstantial evidence, all hearsay. It's people talking, but no witnesses. I mean, okay? That's why, I say they're going to learn that we didn't do this.
We have enough evidence, circumstantial evidence and physical evidence, that we feel he's guilty.
All they want is a conviction, and they don't care if they burn me or not.
Thanks to our viewers, Jerry Strickland and Missy Mundy will have their day in court. They're being tried separately, and if convicted, could face life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. In a moment, the story of a man who is serving a life sentence for robbing a gas station. 5 eyewitnesses claim he's innocent.
July 14th, 1979. The Dallas suburb of Garland, Texas. At 7 p.m., a man entered a gas station office and drew a gun on Doyle, the attendant, who was closing up for the day.
When he first came in the door, and he was shaking the gun at me, telling me he'd kill me, goddamn, he'd kill me. And then I realized it was all for real.
The incident took 10 minutes, but Doyle's key eyewitness testimony would eventually put a man in prison for life.
I don't think that you ever really get over something like that that happens to you. And if you had a 45 stuck in your face and somebody was telling you they was going to kill you, it's something that stick with you the rest of your life, and you never forget the person that does it.
Doyle identified his attacker as Michael Scott Martin, a 26-year-old welder. 5 other witnesses, however, swore that Michael Scott Martin could not have robbed the gas station. They claim he spent the whole day at his home, 70 miles away.
I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm at my house in Fort Worth working on a motorcycle, and they're saying I'm robbing a gas station in Garland. And I've never robbed anything in my life, and I never will.
Michael Martin, Detective Dennis Wheatley.
Michael Martin was arrested, tried, and convicted of armed robbery.
I need you to place your hands on that wall for me.
Because of a previous arrest, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole until 1999. Martin has already served 8 years and still maintains he's innocent. Tonight, he makes a final appeal.
I'm about to the point of giving up. I am innocent. I've gone all the way to the Supreme Court fighting this. And I just keep hoping and praying that there's a way, and I'll find it. And one day I'll prove that I didn't rob that gas station.
The case against Michael Martin was based entirely on eyewitness identification that placed him at the scene of the crime. There was never any physical evidence connecting Martin to the robbery. No fingerprints were found. The money was never recovered, and the gun still hasn't been located. Martin insists that he has been wrongly imprisoned.
Michael Martin had a clean record until he was 26 years old. In 1979, 7 months before the gas station robbery, he was arrested after an altercation in a supermarket. Michael and a friend had been drinking and were seen eating Polish sausage and potato chips from a supermarket's shelves. When the manager threatened to call the police, Michael panicked.
We paid for everything in there.
The incident escalated into violence.
Stay right here. I'm going to contact the police.
We're not staying anywhere. I tell you what, here's your lousy money, all right? We paid for everything.
No, I don't think so. I want you to wait right here. I'm
You
going
want
to
some of
contact
this?
the police.
You want some of this? You want some?
Come on, man.
I don't really know why I pulled the knife. I guess it was just a desire to get out of the door.
Let's get out of here.
I'm drunk, I'm feeling a little crazy. I'd been hassling with this manager, and I was tired of it. I fired it well over their heads. I wasn't meaning to hurt anybody. It was just an adolescent stunt that I never should have. You know, I was 26 years old then. I shouldn't have been out shooting up the town like that. It just didn't make any sense.
I wouldn't call placing knives or shooting at people a prank. It's a pretty serious offense.
You don't expect somebody to get outrageously angry when they're asked to pay for something that they're eating inside a store. I don't think that should lead to the kind of reaction on Michael's part that he obviously had. There was testimony that he was intoxicated at the time, but still, an intoxicated person who would go to that lengths to avoid paying for a Polish sausage, you have to wonder about.
Martin pleaded guilty to assault with a deadly weapon. He was fined and given 4 years probation. At 7 p.m. on July 14, 1979, just 2 weeks after Martin's probation began, the gas station was robbed. The gunman stole over $400, then fled the scene of the crime in a car he'd stolen from Doyle, the attendant. 15 minutes later, at 7:15 p.m., a police unit spotted the stolen car outside a nearby apartment building, where Martin had lived until only a month before. At approximately 7:25 p.m., Detective Wheatley, who'd investigated the supermarket incident, claims he saw Michael Scott Martin in his blue Camaro 3 blocks from the gas station.
As he came through the intersection, he looked at me, and I looked at him and knew him from the previous offense, and I said to myself, that's Michael Scott Martin. He came close enough to me that I could have reached over the top of my motorcycle and slapped him. Dole, I'm going to show you a stack of photographs here. What I'd like you to do is look through them and see if you see an individual in here that you recognize. Okay.
Wheatley asked to be assigned to the robbery case. The following day, he showed the victim, Doyle, a series of mugshots.
He's the type of witness that you wish you had on every case that you worked. His intensity, his quick reaction to picking Michael Scott Martin made him a good witness.
I think this is the guy who robbed me.
You think that's the man, or are you sure that's the man?
I'm sure.
Michael Martin was arrested, charged with aggravated armed robbery, and held without bail.
It's a depressing experience, but I felt like I would prove my innocence. I mean, I didn't rob this gas station. I knew I didn't rob this gas station. I thought I had sufficient proof in just having people that knew where I was at.
Martin claimed he was at Lake Worth, 70 miles away from Garland, at the time of the robbery. 5 separate witnesses, 3 of whom hardly knew Martin, substantiated his claim. Their testimony was the crux of Martin's defense.
The day that they say the robbery happened, I worked on my car and he worked on his motorcycle. And other than about 2 hours that afternoon, between, I don't know, I think it was around 2 to 4 o'clock, when he ran for parts, he was here at all times. From the time he got up in the morning to the time he went to bed at night, he was here.
He was there with me and with George at the time he was accused of robbing this gas station. He just couldn't have done it. He just didn't do it.
When I left my house, it was after 6, before 6:30, and I saw Mike out in front of his house. I don't remember what he's doing. It seems like he's working on his motorcycle. I don't know, but he was here. And after finding out what the circumstances were and what day it was, I was surprised to see that Mike was arrested because I knew I'd seen him so close to the time that the crime was supposed to be committed.
It takes well over an hour to drive from here to Garland. I saw him around 6 o'clock, and there's no way he would have had time to leave and commit this crime by 7 o'clock.
At 7 o'clock Saturday night, I remember it real well because there was a television show that I wanted to catch. It was Battlestar Galactica, so I made sure that at 7 o'clock I was there in front of the television.
Mike, show's starting.
And Mike came in and watched the show with me. How could he have been at my house at 7 p.m. if he was in Garland at 7 p.m., 75, 80 miles away?
Michael Martin's trial hinged on the issue of who the jury would believe, the 2 prosecution eyewitnesses or the 5 defense eyewitnesses. The trial was held in the same courtroom where 2 months previously, Michael Martin had received his probation. The turning point came when his supermarket conviction was admitted into the court record, possibly prejudicing the jury against Martin.
I don't know if we could have gotten a guilty conviction in the second offense if the jury had not known about the first offense. I think that works great psychological influence on the jury. I know that my witnesses were positive. I also know that the defense witnesses were positive. And it was one of those cases back then when I simply had to put on the case and let the jury make their decision. That's what our system's all about.
It took the jury only 15 minutes to find Michael Martin guilty of armed robbery. They gave him the maximum sentence possible under the law.
I have to do 20 flat years, which means I can't come up for parole until 1999 because I supposedly took $400 from this gas station. I don't think I got a fair trial.
If a person is on probation for a felony offense and went out and committed this type of aggravated robbery, no, I don't have any problem with him serving a life sentence for that, if he's guilty.
If he's guilty. Those words have troubled Brad Lawler for 9 years. Could the jury have put a man behind bars who was innocent?
It always bothered me that we were not able to come up with the clincher. There were no fingerprints found at the scene or on the getaway car, no recovery of the stolen items. There was nothing that conclusively tied Michael Martin to the commission of the offense besides the eyewitness testimony. And it's for that reason that I think I always had a little doubt left in my mind about this case.
I'm still sure that I put the right man in jail. There's no doubt in my mind then, and there is no doubt in my mind now.
Why would 5 people, 3 of whom barely knew him, why would they lie in a court of law to protect him?
Back at the time, I leaned toward thinking that Michael Martin was guilty. And today, in retrospect, I simply don't know. I thought my 18-year-old witness was positive. But also, the witnesses who testified for Michael Martin were positive that they were with him at the time of the offense 70 miles away. So it's one of those that I guess we'll never know the true answer to.
Michael still has 11 more years to serve in prison. The groundswell of doubt about his guilt has had no effect.
I've never stopped trying to prove my innocence because I don't know what else I have right now. It's prove my innocence or just sit here for 11 more years. I can really appreciate what freedom is. Before I came here, it was a big abstract, you know. It was always there. When it's taken away, you really appreciate it. I want what I lost, what I feel I had taken from me.
Next, a San Francisco teenager who strayed into a world of witchcraft, magic, and mysticism. His father believes he was murdered. On Saturday, September 8, 1984, a teenage boy drove from his home in Concord, California, across the Bay Bridge into San Francisco. He'd planned to spend the night and return home Sunday evening. Monday, September 10th, 3 days later, on some rugged cliffs in a remote area of San Francisco Bay, two men were birdwatching. On the isolated beach below, they discovered the bruised, half-naked body of 17-year-old Kurt McFall. His father suspects foul play.
Kurt told this friend of his that he was involved in some kind of satanic cult and that he wanted out, but thought that they might try to kill him. And he really feared for his life. It was a murder. It needs to be investigated. There's no doubt in my mind that Kurt could have handled himself in that cliff area because he was an experienced mountain climber and he was a diver. So he would not have drowned in the water or fallen down the hill.
Kurt McFall, dead at 17. To outward appearances, Kurt was a handsome and popular high school student, a confident young man who made friends easily.
Tom McFall has learned there was another side to his teenage son. The day after Kurt disappeared, Tom received an anonymous telephone call telling him that his son had wanted to escape from a cult and that he feared for his life. Tom now believes that Kurt strayed from a suburban middle-class background into a world of witchcraft, mysticism, and possibly murder.
Alarmed by the strange phone call, Tom searched his son's bedroom.
After I had received the telephone call, I thought a lot about this individual as to what he knew about Kurt's disappearance. I wanted to gain all the information I could as to what happened.
In Kurt's room, Tom discovered a knife made from a deer's hoof, a necklace of stone and feathers, and drawings of witchcraft and violent fantasies. These seemed to be further proof that Kurt was leading a double life. At 10, he'd become interested in the medieval fantasy game Dungeons and Dragons. It was the beginning of a voyage into a subculture that would dominate Kurt. A year before he died, Kurt joined the Society for Creative Anachronism, or SCA. Its members enjoy reliving medieval customs and the actual costumes of the period. Once a week, they practice jousting and sword fighting in the parking lot of an Oakland subway station.
Kurt was here about twice a week through February and into March of '84. Learned how to fight. He was good, quick, talented. Really going to be very good at the game. We were real pleased with him. And his death certainly had nothing to do with any part of his participation in the SCA that I knew anything about.
As Kurt became increasingly interested in medieval rituals, he joined a separate group who initiated him into pagan religion. One of Kurt's old high school friends feared this new group and contacted Tom McFall. He'd become concerned for Kurt and now fears for his own safety.
Gradually, over a period of perhaps 6 months, his attitude towards other people changed drastically. He kind of moved from just studying with an interest in medieval religion to actually adopting that religion as his. He lost a lot of his friends through that process.
Kurt studied pagan religion with Gabriel Carrillo, who uses the ancient Welsh name Caradoc.
This is a religion which is also an art, a craft, which has techniques which are, at their essence, magical. I met Kurt because he had evinced an interest in magic. Kurt was real bright and real curious about just about everything.
His involvement with this group can be compared to a drug addiction, where you begin thinking that you've got it in control and you can take it when you want, but gradually losing that sense of knowing when to stop until you're a junkie.
We regard evil as a human phenomenon. I do not make any attempt to control people's lives. People are free to come and go at their own discretion, just as Kurt did. If anything, the emphasis that we have is on individuals taking control of their own lives.
Saturday, September 10th. Kurt had planned to spend the night at Karadic's apartment. They had dinner, went to a movie, and around midnight, Kurt went swimming at Ocean Beach, a few blocks from Karadic's home. Later, Kurt was restless and couldn't sleep. According to Karadic, Kurt knocked on his door about 3 in the morning.
It's too hot in here. I'm going to the beach.
Kurt was never seen again.
My best guess is simply that he took one too many chances. He might have gone swimming in the ocean and been pulled out by the undertow. He might have gone climbing on the cliffs at Land's End and slipped and fallen, or any one of a number of other things.
The following evening, Kurt's car was found, abandoned on a golf course overlooking the ocean. There were a number of puzzling clues. Kurt's driver's license was on the floor. His car keys were on the seat. A $20 bill was in the glove compartment. The prize suit of armor which Kurt had made for his SCA sword fighting was missing from the trunk. Most curious of all, there were beer bottles scattered in and around the car.
The car has to be a phony scene. To me, that was set up because Kurt did not drink beer. That's also inconsistent with the autopsy report that shows that there was no signs of alcohol or drugs on the body when it was recovered. So that looks very suspicious.
At 10:15 the following morning, National Park Service lifeguards recovered the body of Kurt McFall. It was lying in a cove less than 2 miles from Karadic's apartment, just below the cliffs at the golf course where Kurt's car was found.
When we came upon the body, we noticed it was in fairly good condition, fairly pale, usually a sign of being in the water for an extended period of time. No obvious external trauma. He looked pretty clean other than a few small abrasions on the body, but nothing obvious.
Kurt's body had no shoes, socks, or shirt. His back and shoulders were scored with cuts and abrasions, and strangely, the belt he wore was missing its buckle.
With the facts that we have in this case, it's really anybody's guess as to where he actually entered the water, where he came from. My guess would be, and that's all it is an educated guess, that he simply fell off the cliff, and that's what it appears to me.
The coroner's report determined that Kurt died from multiple traumatic injuries and severe blood loss. But no one knows what caused those injuries. Kurt may have drowned, but that would not explain his cuts and abrasions or the acute loss of blood. It appears that Kurt fell from the treacherous cliffs, but it is not known if he fell accidentally or if he was beaten and pushed.
I went to the San Francisco coroner and I said, "What do you think happened to Kurt?" And he said, "I think the most probable cause of Kurt's death is homicide." But he said he didn't have enough to testify to that in a court of law, and so he sent it up to homicide, classified as unknown. And I can't accept that.
The San Francisco police declined to be interviewed. They investigated Kurt's death but found no evidence to classify it as a homicide. The case remains open, but there are no suspects. Although he has no proof, Tom McFall still believes his son was murdered.
Kurt may have uncovered something in the organization and may have indicated to people that he was going to expose this. And I feel that all of these things probably contributed to them to wanting to do away with Kurt.
My personal theory is that Kurt stumbled onto some information that he wasn't supposed to know about. These types of organizations don't make threats, they make actions.
If I wanted to murder somebody, the last person I would murder was would be somebody who was staying at my house and whose father knew that he was staying at my house. I mean, the whole thing is stupid. I understand that Kurt's father went through a great deal of pain about his death and needed to find somebody to blame. And I understand that I was a very convenient person for him to blame. But I had absolutely no responsibility for Kurt's death.
I'm so frustrated to have information that would indicate that your son has been murdered. And to date, they have virtually closed the case. I am bound and determined to get an investigation. I think Kurt deserved this. He did not deserve it to be taken in that manner.
Currently, Tom McFall is the only person investigating his son's death. If Kurt was murdered, he hopes that even now, 3 years later, someone will come forward with new information, new evidence that could reopen the investigation and provide peace of mind for himself and justice for his son. Next, the story of a mysterious bag of unopened letters dating back 40 years. They were written by GIs sailing off to battle in World War II and have yet to reach their lost loved ones.
Letters from home. Each day, millions of them are sent to American servicemen fighting on distant battlefronts. Because of a war postal system called V-mail, they can be flown throughout the world, reaching distant points safely and with amazing speed.
During World War II, thousands of soldiers said goodbye to their loved ones. And almost every GI made a parting promise that he would write home as often as possible. Their letters, carried by the military V-mail service, were the only link between them and their families. Some would return, others would not. For the relatives of those GIs lost in battle, the last letter home became a precious keepsake, a memory of lost love. "41 years after the war ended, on February 4th, 1986, Mike Mingus, a pest exterminator, was spraying the attic in an elderly woman's house in Raleigh, North Carolina. In the corner, he saw some letters spilling out of a laundry bag. Mike Mingus had in fact discovered a military duffel bag filled with hundreds of unopened letters written by soldiers during World War II.
The longer I looked, the more incredulous I became, really. There was just something about the insignia across them. I'd never seen V-mail before. I'd heard the term and knew that generally anything with V in it was World War II vintage. And it was really apparent from the very beginning that there was something here that was just really strange. I really think it'd be best if I took this mail to the proper authorities.
Mike learned that the elderly woman had a nephew who'd been a crew member aboard the SS Caleb Strong when it was bound for North Africa in May 1944. The troops on board had written 235 letters home and stuffed them into the duffel bag. The woman's nephew had vowed to mail them when he returned to the USA, but he'd forgotten. He died about 1980, and the woman had been too embarrassed to say anything. After promising never to reveal her name, Mike convinced this woman to release the letters to him. The letters were sent to Meg Harris of the Postal Service. 92 GIs on board the Caleb Strong had written letters to over 150 friends and family. One by one, the U.S. Postal Service delivered the letters from 89 of the soldiers. Only 3 could not be tracked down.
We're trying to locate a former private John J. Thomas.
You have to be real careful when you start telling them about this man. You kind of lead into it slowly because you don't want anybody to go into shock. And you feel a lot of the closeness of family ties. The whole experience has been one where you realize how much people care for each other and how much they continue caring even after 40 years.
Still at sea, May 1944. My precious wife, darling, I sure miss you. I wish I were back with you right now. It seems so hard to write you, as all I can think of is how I love you and long to be with you. The boat is rocking, so I can't write too neatly. Merrill, darling, I love you and hope that we'll soon be together for good. From what information we can gather, I believe the big invasion is on, so I'll be stuck overseas until the war is over. I love you, my darling. Your husband, Frank.
Merrill Page Rapley is a retired teacher who was married to Frank Rapley, a B-17 turret gunner. His plane was shot down over Austria in 1944. Merrill Rapley never remarried. She's been a widow for 44 years. Receiving Frank's last letter was a surprising and poignant moment.
I was shocked. It tore me all to pieces. And it was just as though we were there together, and just as though he was talking with me. And, of course, I guess I was more or less in a state of shock, but it was the most wonderful letter I had ever received from Frank, even though all of his letters were very dear to me. But after waiting that long and still being able, after 42 years, to get another letter from a man that I still love, that was just something that only the Lord can understand the depth of the meaning of it. The short 2.5 years I had with him was just equal to a lifetime for me. That's why I never did remarry. Nobody else could ever replace him. And I have every letter that he's ever written me, but this, above all, was the most special one.
Hiya, sweets. Just another line today, as I'm always thinking about you and may not be able to write for a few days. Haven't seen land yet, but expect to soon. There is about 6 hours difference in time here, so I often try to think of where you are and what you might be doing. Guess that is natural. Your ever-loving and faithful husband. Oh, it's always touching. Can't help but think back all the time, you know.
Your ever-loving and faithful husband. Those were Staff Sergeant Sumter Grubb's last words to his wife, Peggy, written on May 19th, 1944. Within months, Sumter was killed in combat, but his words would not die.
Tonight we've seen 4 mysteries, 4 true stories of people caught in the most extraordinary circumstances. For each mystery, someone, somewhere, knows the truth. Perhaps it's you.